Scuderia Ferrari and Charles Leclerc started the Monaco Grand Prix weekend confident, and were seen, even by several Formula One figures within the paddock, as favorites. However, given that Monte Carlo is the most unpredictable weekend of the Formula One season, the Monegasque's first home victory was not at all a given. The main challenges? The two final laps in Q3 and the two starts, given the fact that Sergio Perez's massive crash at the start removed the strategic variable, left Charles Leclerc with 77 laps in full control. He was guided by his new Ferrari engineer Bryan Bozzi, who proved up to the task in this important weekend for the Monegasque driver and the Maranello team. This confirmed that Frederic Vasseur's decision to replace Spanish engineer Xavier Marcos Padros with Bryan Bozzi was indeed the right one. Ahead of the next round of the 2024 Formula One Championship, the Canadian Grand Prix, there are now 31 points separating Max Verstappen from Charles Leclerc in the driver's standings, which means a victory and a bit more advantage for the world champion. But more importantly, Red Bull leads Ferrari by 34 points in the Constructors' standings. The Monaco weekend showed us that Ferrari and McLaren were on a similar level at this stage of the season, with Charles Leclerc and Oscar Piastri making the difference with their performance in the qualifying laps on Saturday. It's important not to underestimate the strength of the MCL 38 single-seater on the streets of Monaco, as the data relating to the ideal lap time shows that Oscar Piastri could have been on pole position and Lando Norris in third place, based on their best overall sectors, ahead of the respective SF-24 cars of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. Important signs of improvement in slow sections for the car of the team led by Andrea Stella had already appeared in the Miami Grand Prix. But it's interesting that the McLaren team principal stated the improvements exceeded expectations in the Principality. However, it's understood that the Monaco track is entirely atypical, pushing the upper limits of technical characteristics and not requiring significant setup compromises. The most crucial factor is how well a car can be optimized for highly aggressive and different technical demands compared to what other circuits on the Formula One calendar usually require. The car needs to operate with the softest possible setup for bumps, curbs, and high traction, combined with a high downforce package. The SF-24 proved to be highly competitive in the extremely slow urban sections of the Principality, significantly countering the performances shown earlier in the season, where it had been more brilliant in medium and high-speed sections rather than in slow ones. With these new generation cars, it is very challenging to find a balance that ensures the car performs well at any speed and in any situation. For example, Red Bull continues to struggle on street circuits and generally on bumpy surfaces. According to an Alpine technician, this is because their car has a very stiff rear suspension in order to maintain a stable aerodynamic platform. This compromise allows them to maximize performance at most races while sacrificing a few others. Regarding Scuderia Ferrari, the SF-24 is not a car that lacks speed in slow sections, as Monaco demonstrated. Instead, it's the compromise that limits it because on other tracks, the focus is often on high-speed performance, where it's crucial not to slide in order to avoid tire wear. Last year, the SF-23 struggled significantly in high-speed sections, and tire management was far from optimal, which did not allow Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz to push in the race, with the two Ferrari drivers often losing positions following a good performance in the qualifying session on Saturday. At this stage, we should also focus on a topic that has been highly discussed by the media in the last few weeks, namely Ferrari's battery deployment. There is no problem for the Maranello team in this regard, it's just a different energy management strategy used by the Ferrari technicians. On the SF-24, the slow sections are partially sacrificed, even mechanically, relying on an extra contribution from the hybrid system that uses more energy during acceleration phases rather than in the last few hundred meters of the straights. This is what led to Charles Leclerc's post-qualifying complaint in Imola, when he mentioned that Red Bull and McLaren do something strange with their engine strategy. For the Emilia-Romagna event, Ferrari arrived at the first of its two home races with considerable attention, as it was unveiling its comprehensive first aerodynamic upgrade package. Although it led the way in Friday practice, it fell behind Red Bull and McLaren in both qualifying and the race. Ferrari team boss Fred Vasseur remained confident, insisting that if they achieved a 1-2 in qualifying, they would secure a 1-2 finish in the race. Charles Leclerc, on the other hand, believed their race pace was strong, but acknowledged a shortfall in qualifying performance. After finishing fourth in qualifying behind Max Verstappen and the McLaren duo of Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris, Charles Leclerc initially attributed the result to needing the most improvement in the first sector during qualifying, compared to his rivals. He mentioned that this had been an issue for the past few events, indicating a continuation of his early 2024 struggle with optimizing tire preparation for qualifying laps. Post-race, the Monegasque elaborated on where he felt Ferrari's weekend had gone wrong, attributing the problem to Ferrari's electrical energy deployment settings at a track where top speed is crucial. Given Charles Leclerc's insistence that the situation had occurred at previous events, we can use car GPS data to see if this claim stacks up. At the Imola circuit in Italy, Charles Leclerc gave away nearly 4 miles per hour to Max Verstappen's Red Bull RB20 while starting his fastest flying lap in qualifying, and on this was also 6.2 miles per hour down in top speed comparison. But here, Verstappen must be discounted because, as Frederic Vasseur highlights, he was receiving a significant toe gain from Nico Hülkenberg's Haas. Compared to the McLarens, the data shows Leclerc was 2.5 miles per hour down at the start of the lap and 2 miles per hour down in top speed overall, with Piastri providing the comparison. Rewind to Miami, where Charles Leclerc qualified second behind Verstappen, and there's another difference between their fastest lap speeds. At the Hard Rock Stadium, their starting speeds had Leclerc 1.2 miles per hour down at the start of the lap, with a top speed later of 193.2 miles per hour, and Max's was 196.4 miles per hour. In China, Leclerc faced a starting lap deficit of 0.6 miles per hour, with a top speed gap of 2.5 miles per hour, which was 1.2 miles per hour in Japan, 4.3 and 2.5 in Australia, 3.7 and 1.9 miles per hour in Jeddah, and 4.3 and 1.9 for the Bahrain season opener. Adding Carlos Sainz in the other Ferrari, the data shows he generally tracks the same as Charles Leclerc against Max Verstappen, but on 2 occasions there are notable differences. In Miami, the Spaniard went from starting 2.5 miles per hour down on Verstappen to bettering his top speed by 0.6 miles per hour, while in Bahrain the Spaniard started 1.9 miles per hour down on the Red Bull, but was 2.5 miles per hour up on his teammate and again ended up heading Verstappen at their power peaks. There are other factors at play in these figures, including getting the tires in the best working window to provide a grip launch onto straights to start qualifying, which Leclerc admitted he was struggling with at the campaign's commencement. But this is also a big factor in Bahrain too, given the tricky nature of keeping the tires alive there, while in Miami hitting the critical tire performance temperature window was inconsistent across the field. On the other hand, the updates introduced at the Imola circuit slightly shifted the aerodynamic map of the SF-24 car, helping the Italian car at low speeds. However, in Monaco, it was not just a matter of updates. The key difference was the SF-24's excellent setup window, which, unlike the Red Bull RB20, managed to meet the extreme technical demands of the Monaco circuit. Therefore, it's not true that the car from Maranello is weak in slow sections. It's simply that Ferrari doesn't believe this is where they can maximize lap time, especially during the race, on specific type of track layouts.